Silver Guardian is an insulting, hideous mess that makes me want to claw my eyes out just so I don't have to see it again. Now, the plot sounds like it could be intriguing. Riku Soigen bounces from reality in a virtual world tournament fighter in order to save his friend from mysterious forces. And with the main character being voiced by someone as experienced as Fukuyama Jun, you start to think that it might be worth a watch. But when the first review on Mao is 3 paragraphs just shitting on it, you start to wonder what went wrong. Now, Silver Guardian was actually based on a Chinese webtoon made in 2015 by a man named Líng Méng. It was also published by Tencent Games. Yes, that Tencent Games. During the localization, quite a few things were changed around, with the most notable one being the names. The names have been changed from Chinese names to more traditional Japanese names. There are other subtle changes, but I don't want to get into them. I'm going to explain to you why this anime is bad now. Now, this is our main character Riku Soigen. He attends the prestigious Shinryu Academy, which he works 4 jobs just to be able to afford to attend. Why he doesn't just go to a cheaper school, I don't know, because anime I guess. Now, despite the fact that he works 4 jobs, he somehow manages the time to also be the top MMO player in this game called Dungeon Masters. During one of these times he's gaming, he meets a girl, and this is where we're introduced to our main heroine, Riku Rei. And despite the fact that they literally never speak during the entire time that they play the game, they somehow fall in love, which is basically the equivalent of someone falling in love with a video game NPC. So after a couple months of their RuneScape relationship, we find out that the game is going to shut down, and we also find out that Rei's father is actually the developer of the game, and it's shutting down because they want to replace the game with a new game called Grave Robbers, but they decide to go full EA and make it so that the more money you put into the game, the stronger your character will be. And I love how in this scene you can see people clapping in the background and everyone applauding such great game design. But you know, if a video game company tried to pull this off in real life, there'd be a fucking riot. But anyway, Riku and Rei decide to go on one last quest before the game shuts down, but before Soigen can get there, she is killed by an NPC, and we come back to Rei's father. And Jesus Christ, what is this, Epstein's prison cell? So this lady is holding him up at gunpoint because she wants to find out who the last guardian is, but he ain't budging, so she takes him out Goodfellas style. We then go back to Soigen and Rei. Now this is the morning and Soigen is walking to school and he bumps into Rei, where Rei reveals that she knew who he was the entire time. But upon seeing her, Soigen immediately breaks into tears by the fact that he couldn't protect her from that NPC. Now I'm assuming this was supposed to be a heart-wrenching, touching moment where he talks about the fact that he couldn't protect her, but the entire time I was thinking, calm down bro, it's just a game.
The phrase "it's just a game" is such a weak mindset. You're okay with what happened, losing, imperfection of a craft. When you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice. There's always something to learn, and always room for improvement.
So they agree to meet again and part ways, but when Rei makes it home, she finds out her father is killed and is prepared for his funeral. Now, a couple of days pass and Soigen is actually invited to the mansion because apparently Rei's father left him something. Curiously, Soigen meets back up with Rei at her mansion. She hands him a copy of Gravebusters left to Soigen by her father, and on this copy is a message for Soigen. After watching it, Soigen finds out that he is actually Rei's father's grandson, and the copy of Grave Robbers that he gave him was actually loaded with a boatload of in-game money that he wants Soigen to use to protect Rei. How he expects Soigen to protect Rei with in-game currency, I don't know, because anime I guess. During all of this, some thugs attack the mansion sent by the person who killed Rei's father. They are sent there to kidnap Rei. Now Soigen offers to pay them off with all the money that he got from his grandfather, but then he soon realizes that he can't use in-game money for real life purchases. Now I want you to remember this, he is explicitly told that he cannot use in-game money for real life purchases because this comes into play later, so they kidnap her anyway. After this, we learn the fact that Soigen never skipped leg day because somehow he is able to chase down a car going up top speed with just his bicycle. But after this, the car fucking explodes and all this shit's happening, the 2 people die and Rei is then kidnapped again by a mysterious shadow being who disappears into nowhere. After this, Soigen receives a call from a person calling himself Stark Tiger, and he says that if he ever wants to see Rei again, he'll have to meet him in Gravebusters. Now, I'm assuming this was supposed to be a really tense and stressful scene, and you're supposed to take this person very serious, but it's hard to do that when they call themselves Dark Tiger. That is a name that my 14-year-old self would call his RuneScape character because he thought it was cool and edgy. So Soigen goes home, and he goes to boot up Gravebusters, and suddenly out of nowhere, a video game character from Gravebusters bursts out into the real world and brings him into the game world. Don't ask any questions because this literally never happens again and is never explained. So the girl introduces herself as Twin Star and says that she'll be Soigen's guide in the virtual world. She then takes him to Soigen's grandfather, who is now apparently still alive in the virtual world. And he tells him that he wants to save Ray. He'll have to be a guardian of the virtual world and protect floors from incoming invaders. So he gives Soigen a test. There are 3 raiders currently invading the floor that they're in now, so Soigen has to defeat them to become the last guardian. Soigen defeats them with ease, but when he gets back to his grandfather, he is dying. I'm assuming this is supposed to be a really tense and emotional scene, but all of the emotion is taken away because his grandfather's already died before, so you really don't care about what happens to him. But before his grandfather dies, he tells Soigen that he is the last guardian and that he must protect all of the dungeons. Now, of course, because it's this anime, this never happens. It's not even brought up again. It's almost like it was completely forgotten. During the next episode, not much happens. It doesn't really increase the plot, but it does give us some useful exposition. It follows the 3 dungeon characters that Soigen killed during his practice exam, and from one of them we learn that if your funds hit 0, your account gets deleted and you no longer have access to the game. It is also something that I want you to remember. Okay, so we go to the next episode and we are greeted by a flashback from a year ago. This kid has just received a copy of Grave Robbers and is talking about how he's going to make it big and get out of the slums with all the money that he earns playing it, which makes no sense. First of all, the game didn't even come out a year ago, it came out like a couple weeks ago. Second of all, you can't even make money playing the game, so I have no idea what he's talking about. It's almost like the creators forgot what they wrote 2 episodes ago. So we cut back to Soigen during present time. He's looking for someone to train the basics of the game to him. Do you remember how he could take out people with ease just 2 episodes ago? Well, it seems like the show's completely forgotten about that because he's lost all of his skills and powers. Like most things in this show, it is never explained or brought up again. So while Soigen's looking for a teacher, he bumps into the kid from earlier, and the kid is trying to break into a tournament. He then reveals that his sister is sick, and with the money that he had earned from winning the tournament, he'll be able to pay for her medical bills. So after that, Soigen agrees to help him, so they both break into the tournament and begin to fight. But because Soigen has no more powers, he is losing. But then the show just decides to introduce a completely new power. So Soigen summons Twin Star, his guide, and she turns into a dragon, and because of that, the tournament ends with them winning. Now you might think I was a little bit abrupt and rushed talking about this, but I wasn't. This entire fight only lasted about 3 minutes and then it was over. And don't worry about the dragon thing because it is never explained and never happens again. And just like that, the season ends. No, I'm not joking, the season really ends there. We get no plot or character development throughout the entire show and it just ends that abruptly. And that's not even the worst part. This anime was only 2 hours long. It has 12 episodes and each of them are 10 minutes, which only equates to around half the length of a normal anime. That is why I've decided to add season 2 into this review. Now this season is about 6 episodes, but each episode is 20 minutes, making it 2 hours, and that is the same length of the first season. And if you add these together, it's actually 4 hours, which makes the average time that a normal anime is. So I don't understand why they didn't just make a normal length anime. But anyway, let's go on to season 2. Season 2 starts off right where season 1 left off. Soigen has found a trainer and is studying the beginner's guide for the game. But here we do actually learn something pretty important. Every person who spawns into Gravebusters spawns in with a weapon, and that weapon has powers based on the personality of the users. Now that is great and all, but why weren't we explained this in season 1? It's such an important part of the world and it is explained really late. That'd be like if the concept of jutsus were only introduced during Naruto Shippuden. It's dumb and should have just been explained a lot earlier. Soigen is given a test to see if he is ready to be a grave robber, which he passes with ease. And after this, we learn that the instructor for the test is actually one of the robbers he defeated during his entrance exam to become the last guardian, Farin. But this reunion is cut short when one of Soigen's teammates from the entrance exam goes absolutely ballistic and starts attacking them and kills one of the other teammates. After this, Soigen's powers are revealed. He can take the ability of the first person who dies in the level. So Soigen decides to fight the dude, and it actually seems like Soigen's winning. But then the dude summons up a Lamborghini and tries to run Soigen over. No, I am not joking, this actually happens. Something more annoying happens after that though. though. So he goes to try and kill Soigen, and apparently he can't even touch Soigen because Soigen has more money than him. And upon trying to attack Soigen, the dude literally dies. This has never happened before and never happens again. It is also never explained. It felt like the writers wrote themselves into a pit and tried to dig themselves out of anything they could think of. After this, Soigen and Farin meet up and decide to join a team. We then cut to Dark Tiger, and it turns out that he is searching for Soigen because he wants to destroy the last Guardian. Then back to Soigen. So Soigen and Farin have met up in the real world because apparently she just knew where he lived. And do you remember that thing I told you to remember about how you couldn't spend in-game money in the real world? Well, it seems like the show has completely forgotten about this because he then spends his in-game money on food. Why would you write something as such an important plot point if you're just going to forget about it later? It makes no sense. But anyway, Soigen and Farin hear about a boss raid that is going on in-game and it's being organized by Dark Tiger. So they decide to attend and they make it to the level. But wait a second, isn't this a boss? And if he's guarding a floor, wouldn't that make him a guardian? Meaning that Soigen isn't actually the last guardian. And if Dark Tiger was the one who was preparing this thing, that would have meant that he knew that there was a guardian here. So why would he then call Soigen the last guardian? That literally makes no sense. So anyway, Soigen gets to the level and there's about 200 people there fighting this massive monster. And do you remember that other thing I told you to remember? How if you lose all your funds, you no longer have access to the game? Well, it turns out during the final boss fight, this was actually wrecked. Now, it's now that if you die in the game, you no longer have access to the game. So what about Farin, or all the other people that have died? It seems like they just added this in to add more stakes to the final boss fight. So Soigen begins to battle the boss, but then the boss reveals that he was actually sent by his grandfather. And if Soigen can defeat him, he'll get some information on Riku Rei. So they begin to battle again. And do you remember Soigen's powers from like 2 episodes ago, where he can take the ability of the first person who died on the level? Well, that's completely gone and replaced with new powers, and it's never explained. Soigen now has 7 powerful emeralds, each one of them giving a power, which seems strangely familiar to me. But anyway, Soigen then goes on to tell us that he has no idea what his powers do. Can you guess what he does right after this? If you guess, go on a 3-minute monologue about what his powers do. It's almost like they're not even trying anymore. After defeating him, Soigen then learns that he actually knew Riku Rei at a very young age, and that his grandfather is not actually her real father. Her real parents were actually killed by Dark Tiger. We also learn that she has a mysterious power, but this isn't really explained. After defeating him, Soigen is then approached by one of Temujin's men, the person who kidnapped Riku Rei, and he is told that if he wants to see Riku Rei again, he will come with him. So at this point, I'm thinking the last episode is going to be a reunion episode where he finally meets up with Riku Rei again after all this time. Maybe he fights with Temujin, maybe they become friends and stuff, but at least the plot will go somewhere. But nope, this random person who has never been introduced before comes out of nowhere, and the last episode is spent fighting him. This highlights my main problem with the show. It introduces so many characters and never develops on the ones that it already has. Like, what about Farin? She has been with us for the entirety of the 2nd season, and we literally know nothing about her. There is no backstory, we don't know her goals or motives. We literally know nothing. This is a unsatisfying ending to a unsatisfying show. After looking at the reviews and scores of both seasons, it seems that most people agree that this show is a 6 out of 10. So to get a voice from you guys, I decided to grab the highest rated reviews on my anime list just to see what people think about this show. We have a review from MD1 Champion. Now before I read this, I want a disclaimer. There was a review rated higher than this, but the review was written halfway through the season, so I really didn't think it was an accurate judge of what people would think. But anyway, they rate it a 5 out of 10, and they say, the beginning of the show started out strong and showed some promise. The shorter episodes left a bitter taste. I didn't know anime episodes could be that short. The storyline jumped all over the place and was full of holes, not to mention constantly adding new characters out of nowhere. I'd like to know how if the new game just started and Soigen was one of the first people to get the consoles, how he could be the most amateur noob out there with no knowledge of the game compared to everyone around him. Like WTF, not to mention he started out OP and confident and now is just a floppy, wet, lame towel. There are so many flaws and plot holes in this anime, but at least it has some good potential. Perhaps the creator could acknowledge his failures and improve upon them. I don't see it going butt up from here. Now, that is the end of that review, and I'd like to say it is pretty honest representation of how I feel about the anime. It includes a lot of points that I mentioned previously in this video. But enough of that, let's move on to the highest rated review of season 2 of this show. This review is from Kedisfin. They rate this show a 3 out of 10, and they say, "This anime feels very disconnected from the first season. The number of plot holes resembles a colander, but unlike a colander, it fails to hold anything of importance, like my attention. So little is explained from the first season, and instead the second season does nothing but increase the confusion. I have not read the web manga. The anime feels like it's taken the best parts of the web manga, strained everything that's good from it, and used it as a leftover as the basis for the plot, because if the web manga is as bad as the anime, then there is no way in hell that it would have been animated. As I've said from the beginning, nothing is explained, yet more characters are introduced. There's maybe 1 or 2 acceptable fights in the anime, but it feels like they put those in the anime just so you wouldn't think it was complete trash. They add nothing to the character development, and the powers used in the fights are never seen again. It seems like to me the episodes do not play well with the story, especially when dialogue drags on and wastes precious time that could be used making the anime more interesting. Instead, time is wasted explaining why a character did what they did in a fight, or a flashback of characters that play no part in the anime later on. The game inside of the anime is also poorly explained, and the second season is even worse. Is the game virtual reality? What is the value of assets? In the first season, it stated that game money cannot be used in reality, but Suigen clearly uses it to pay for his lunch. Do you use assets when you are defeated? Because sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Overall, the story is pathetic. That is the end of that review, and I'd just like to say, wow, that was pretty harsh, but it basically covers on everything that I said in this video. Now, judging by both reviews, it seems like most people don't like this show, and it's not hard to see why, so let's wrap this up. When it comes to rating an anime, I have to take into account the technical aspects as well as my personal enjoyment, and frankly, Silver Guardian seems to fail on every single level. The story just bumbles around and honestly feels like a fanfiction I would have written when I was 12, and for that reason I am rating both seasons a 3 out of 10. And honestly, if I had to review it again, I feel like my score would be lower. With that being said, that is the end of this video. Stay tuned in for next week's video as I review Tenzu Danzai Scout to Heaven, the current lowest rated anime on Mao. But anyway, that is the end of the video. Like it if you like it, dislike it if you don't, and I am out.